This is just absolutely maddening. At this point, you couldn't even make this stuff up. Once again, law enforcement in Uvalde, Texas is changing their tune. They're changing their story again. It's almost like they've been trying to cover up a trail of ineptitude that led right to the scene of this elementary school. And it's almost as if it's clear now to almost everybody that the response was so terrible that it probably led to a higher death toll than we would have otherwise seen. But they always had one thing to fall back on until now. They kept saying over and over and over at these press conferences the door was propped open by a teacher. A teacher had propped open this door, and that's how the shooter got into the school. In a way, almost saying, like, hey, if you want to blame somebody, blame the teacher that left the door open that let the shooter in to begin with. Here's an example of them talking about this as if it's a fact.
At 11:27, we know from video evidence, at 11:27, the exterior door suspected of where we knew the shooter entered, Ramos, was propped open by a teacher. 11:28.
All right, so we have video evidence that this door was propped open by the teacher. First, they said suspected, and then they said we know that this happened. Now we get this piece of information. And I know what you're going to say, Sean, this is from her attorney. What do you expect them to say? Stick with me here, okay? This is a bombshell article from the San Antonio Express News. Lawyer Uvalde teacher did not leave door open that gunman used to enter Robb Elementary School. They say an employee at Robb Elementary School had propped open a door to carry food from a car to the classroom last Tuesday, but closed it shut after realizing that a gunman was loose and heading toward the school, her San Antonio lawyer said. Don Flannery said the school employee, who is not being identified out of safety concerns, called 911 to report an accident near the school. This was involving the black truck, which turned out to be driven by the gunman. According to a detailed account on Friday by Steve McCraw, director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, the Uvalde High dropout fired at funeral home employees after he had crashed the pickup and went on to the school where he carried out the attack. McCraw told reporters on Friday that the employee propped open the door about the time the gunman crashed the truck, and that employee called 911. But Flannery, this is her attorney, said he wants to make it clear that the door was not left propped open. She saw the wreck. She ran back inside to get her phone to report the accident. She came back out while on the phone with 911. The men at the funeral home yelled, "He has a gun." She saw him jump the fence and he had a gun, so she ran back inside. Here's the key part of all of this, along with the evidence that backs it up. She kicked the rock away when she went back in. She remembers pulling the door closed while telling 911 that he was shooting. She thought the door would lock because the door is always supposed to be locked. This is backed up by a law enforcement source that wants to remain anonymous, and you can tell why that would be the case. You can understand why they would want to be anonymous, considering all the turmoil going on there. A law enforcement source familiar with the investigation said surveillance video and audio verifies the employee removed the rock holding the door open and closed it. Quote, "She slammed it shut," said the source, who requested anonymity because the source does not have authority to speak with the media. The cops are going to argue she didn't shut it hard enough. It didn't shut all the way. She is arguing the cops are not telling the truth here. We don't even know if this is the way that this person entered the school. I removed the rock, I shut it, and it's on video. Now, does this tell you something? As a response to yet another change in the overall narrative from the incompetent police department in Uvalde, Texas, Uvalde Police Department and Uvalde ISD Police Force are no longer cooperating with the TXDPS investigation into the shooting at Robb Elementary and the state's review of the police response, according to multiple law enforcement. ABC News saying they are no longer cooperating with the investigation into their response to this shooting. That doesn't look good. That looks real bad, especially when you're doing this after we found out the key part or one of the key pieces of the police narrative, another one to bite the dust. And there's got to be 10, 12 of them now that have changed over time. The biggest one maybe being the timeline. But yet again, they had it wrong. And the teacher says, "I didn't leave that door open." What do you think? Is the teacher telling the truth? Does this inside anonymous source from the police verify that? If so, why would law enforcement not be telling us that the employee came back, kicked the rock away, and shut the door? What is the point of covering some of these things up like this? Do they not think people are going to find out eventually? Of course they are. Or at least I hope so. Facebook.com/The News Junkie. Hit that follow button. YouTube.com/The News Junkie. Hit subscribe. Thanks for watching as always. I'll see you in the comments. We'll talk to you again real soon.